Our speaker today is Dr. Tim Hovanek. Hopefully I said that right. Are you hearing us, Dr. Tim?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Can you hear me? Yep. Okay. Dr. Tim is founder of Dr. Tim Aquatics. He's a lifelong fish keeper and microbiologist. He's done kind of some groundbreaking research on the science behind fish keeping, as well as developing several products around cycling tanks and different things. Today he's going to be, and that's a brief description, and he can cover more, but he's going to be talking to us about fish food nutrition and fish feeding nutrition. So that's a topic that I know I have been guilty of. We have that temptation to just, well, that's a cheap price on fish food, so I'm going to get that without always looking at the ingredients and really looking out for what's best for our fish. But those of you that are breeding know more and more how important nutrition is to really bring out the quality in the fish. And so that's going to be a little bit of kind of the topic he's talking about us today. And Tim, I'm going to turn it over to you. Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. And I'll let you take it over. Thank you.
All right. So, as you said, I have been a hobbyist all my life. I'm founder of Dr. Tim's Aquatics. Before that, I was the chief science officer at Marineland Aquarium Products for 18 years. Before that, I ran a hatchery for a company called Aquatic Systems, and we raised hybrid striped bass, sturgeon, and catfish. And then before that, I was in the U.S. Peace Corps raising shrimp. So there's pretty much common theme, aquatics. I did my PhD at UC Santa Barbara on phylogenetics of nitrifying bacteria. And at San Diego State, my master's in ammonia toxicity and ammonia excretion in fish. And at San Diego State University, I also spent a year studying limnology in Uppsala University in Uppsala, Sweden. The classes were in Swedish. I'm not Swedish. I didn't know a word when I left. Quite fun, but easy language to learn. I still have my fish tank, first fish tank. I got 2 goldfish at a country or a high school or a elementary fair. Took them home, took some soap, washed out an old bowl, put the fish in there, and they were dead in the morning. I was not happy. Yeah, first 2 fish I killed in less than 12 hours. My uncle heard about my plight, my disappointment, and he gave me this first aquarium, a Pemco. Gary at ZooMed is after this aquarium. It's a collector's item. It's now a death trap with the electrical and stuff like that, and everything my uncle taught me about how to maintain it, pretty much wrong, but it got me hooked. And so let's talk about fish diseases because we set these tanks up, we spend a lot of money, buy all this equipment, whether it's freshwater, saltwater, and then we feed for convenience, which I'll explain in a minute. We don't, and so fish start getting diseases like scoliosis, latorosis. So scoliosis when you're looking down and the curvature of the spine. Latorosis is when you're looking lateral at the fish and spines like that. Stringy poop, common issue. That's poor nutrition. Bloat, poor nutrition. Most chronic diseases, meaning diseases not like ammonia toxicity or chlorine or something that kills most of your fish right away, but chronic diseases where fish are wasting away or they're not developing are generally due to poor diet. Upside down goldfish, I still hear this all the time. Well, it's got a swim bladder disease. No, I would be willing to bet 99,999 times out of 10,000 there's nothing wrong with the fish's swim bladder. Goldfish don't have a stomach. And what we feed them, basically they get constipated in their long intestine, and that food then starts to break down by bacterial action. It forms a gas. The bacteria form a gas, and they basically develop a Goodyear blimp inside their intestine, and that's why they're floating upside down. that is why the common wives' tales of, well, feed them brine shrimp or feed them peas or something like that. Those are laxatives to a fish. You're getting more fiber. I mean, your doctor tells you all the time, stop eating processed food, eat more fiber, and that's for your gut health. And I won't go into this, but there's people looking at this, and I do another much more scientific talk on the biome of guts, because one of my original master's thesis was fish gut um, health, but that's another story why I didn't continue on that. Um, so, I mean, and this is not a knock on anything. When I talk about convenience, what do we go to? We go to flakes. They're convenient. They're right there. Um, and most people think that's it, and that flakes are all you have to feed. And there's nothing wrong with that, except that they are not a nutritionally uh, complete diet because of how they're made. The the fish food is a gruel. It's like a soup and it smells. And then there's this roller, and the roller is at 1800 degrees Celsius. And picture the gruel being sprayed on almost like a mister out in the desert. If you've been out in the desert and you've been at a bar or something, they're having that misting to try to keep the water cool. Well, this mister spraying this fish feed gruel on this roller, and as soon as it hits it, it bakes it, and there's a long razor blade as the uh, hot roller turns, the razor blade scrapes it out, and basically you're baking out lots of the nutrition. So there's nothing wrong with it, but it's just like if you ate French fries, you know, 3 days, 3 times a day, 7 days a week. Yeah, you're going to be alive, but you're not going to be healthy, and your intestine and your biome, the bacteria, it's just going to not be good. Um, and it depends really on the fish also, and supplementing. Fish need variety, things like that. So you've got flakes, you've got pellets. Pellets can be uh, better in that they're not cooked at that super high temperature. Everything does, have a shelf life. Uh, Veggies, uh, dried seafood is a good food. Um, and like anything else, there are brands that are quality, and then there are brands that are not so great quality. And and there's a bewildering choice. There's flakes, there's pellets, there's freeze dried, um, frozen, live foods, gels. This is full disclosure. We do make a fish food. It's a do-it-yourself frozen food made from a gel, and they all have their pluses and minuses. People think, well, frozen food's the best. Well, if frozen food is frozen, unfrozen, frozen, unfrozen, it can develop lots of bacterial growth in there. So maybe not so good. Live foods. When I ran Marine Land Labs, and don't know if you experienced this, right as we got into summer, we would feed a variety of foods. The first couple of years, I had noticed we'd start getting disease outbreaks, which we had a biosecure lab. All the fish came in a different room. They were quarantined for 30 to 45 days before they went into the main fish room. But so we knew our fish were clean, and I traced it back to the live food that we were getting came in with huge amounts of bacteria. And because we had a full-scale microbiology lab, that was, easy to do. And so basically we stopped feeding live foods in the summer because the bacterial counts and what we were getting in that were terrible. And once we stopped doing that, that problem went away. There's all sorts of choices there. Um, and it really depends on what organisms you're keeping. There's herbivorous, omnivorous. Herbivore is mostly plant food. Omnivore is plant and animal food feeder. Carnivorous is they mostly eat meat. But even a carnivorous, like a a panther grouper. What they're eating ate plants. Everything at all food at its base has a fair amount of plant in it, whether you're a high level carnivore or not, or a herbivore, you're still getting lots of plants. And why that's important is that's where the colors come from. Most people will say that their fish fade over time. And if your fish are fading, the colors are fading over time, that is due to nutrition. There's just no doubt about it. They are not getting basically the veggies and the carotenoids and xanthins and things like that come mostly from vegetables or plants. Koi, I was a little late because I was out there when I saw the message. I was out playing in my koi pond 15 minutes ago. Because of the scheduling here. So I have 3 koi ponds in my backyard. And for colors and shape and development, my koi are some of them 33 years old because my son helped me build the pond when he was a little guy. And you can have very long lived, very colorful, great shaped fish, but it's all got to do with feeding. So nutrition basics, every fish needs animal and plant proteins. Amino acids come from these proteins. The lipids and fats come, they need that. Vitamins and minerals come from the food. For top health and appearance, we want to have color enhancers. Now you've got immune system boosters. There's a lot of the original work on probiotics, where you see probiotics in yogurt and now probiotics and everything. The original work showing the proof of concept was done on fish. So you've got probiotics in there, which, like everything else, kind of gets the marketing runs ahead of the science, but that's true in everything. So in types of proteins, you've got animal proteins. And the thing about that is fish like it. That's the French fries. People like that, or fish like that. They're palatable. They have a good amino acid profile, good source of energy. The negative is the higher the level of protein in the fish food, the higher level of nitrogenous waste, basically ammonia, because that's where the ammonia is produced from. It's from the fish food. So the more you feed, the higher the ammonia. Obviously, the more waste, and you have to be able to take care of both of those. But as much as 65% of the protein that fish consumes is excreted as ammonia. 10% is about solid waste. This was part of my master's thesis. Plant proteins, the positive is they're less nitrogenous waste because usually they're a little lower in protein. They're pretty good in the amino acid profile. The negative is they're not as attractive to fish. And as people tend to do, a really good source of vitamins and minerals is spirulina. And you can buy spirulina as a powder. We sell that, and you can add it to your fish food, things like that. But it's really bitter. And what we tell people is a little bit is best. Don't shake it on there like salt, what people do, or pepper, something like that. It's just a small shake when you're adding to your fish food, whatever you're doing, if you're making your own fish food, because it's very bitter to fish and it's pretty unpalatable. And then once a fish associates bitterness with the food you're feeding it, they tend not to go after that food anymore. So different types of proteins, and this is how you can read the back of a fish label by law, and this is regulated. When you sell a fish feed or anything that has the word food on it, all 50 states consider that a food, and it has to be registered. Some states are harder than others. I'm out in California, and California is one of the easiest. The hardest states in terms of that they really look at the labels: Idaho, Illinois, Pennsylvania, Texas. They're terrible. And so you have to list by the highest ingredient first down to the lowest ingredient. And so you can see by reading the label, what are companies putting in there? Is it fish meal, dried krill, squid, shrimp? And on plants, you've got soybean, alfalfa, whole wheat flour, things like that. And those words are what gets you in trouble, because there's American Association of Feed Control Officials, AFCO. All the states follow this guideline of how you have to word things. Like, I got in trouble with Texas because we put in dried tomatoes, and Texas wanted to know how they were dried. It's like, what? How they were dried? Were they kiln dried? Were they sun dried? We had to put how they were dried. So some states can be very particular on the listing, but as a consumer, you can read the back of that label and it can tell you a lot. Amino acids are the building blocks of proteins. There's 23 types of amino acids, and they're grouped in essential and non-essential. 10 are considered essential, and they have to be provided in the diet. And as it said, it works back to the proteins. They're needed for cell maintenance, for growth, for reproduction. And certain amino acids are a source of glucose, which is a critical energy source. And certain proteins come from different sources, and fish may not get all the amino acids they need. And you can tell that if they've got scoliosis, laterosis, if they're feeding, but their stomach is shrunk, caved in, they may be ingesting, but they're not digesting where they're getting so that means they'll eat it, but it just passes right through them. They're not getting any nutrition. Lipids or fats, you've got to have some. Fats get a bad rap in that we eat too much of it, and we're sedentary. Most of your fish are not. Lipids have a lot of energy, but there can be too much of a good thing. I'm sure since we're all fish geeks, you've been to public aquariums and you're looking at the fish and they look like footballs. If you look down on them, they're as wide as they are long. Public aquariums, they some do great, some do not so great with what they feed their fish, and there's a lot of research on that, because even a fish swimming around constantly, not fed a proper diet, can develop fat and excess fat deposit. So you be careful with that. And then the main part of this is your HAAS and your PUFAs, and that stands for lipids include the fatty acids, the omega-3, the omega-6, and PUFAs are your polyunsaturated fatty acids. We won't go into the chemistry. The HAAS are the highly unsaturated fatty acids. And the key thing about this, don't worry about the chemical bonds, is what type of fish you keep. Because freshwater fish can be fed PUFAs, polyunsaturated fatty acids, because they can make the HAAS from the PUFAs. So you can feed them. Yeah. I'm not trying to make this a chemistry lesson, but this is the main take home message is the big difference here is saltwater fish can't make the highly unsaturated fatty acids from the polyunsaturated fatty acids. So what does that mean? If you're keeping saltwater fish, feeding them an inexpensive freshwater food is not good over the long term. And why do I know that freshwater food's going to be inexpensive? Is because the ingredients to make the HAAS are much more expensive. That's salmon meal, higher oils. It's just from all my experience. I mean, I made fish food at Marineland when I was in charge of the hatchery. That was our biggest expense, and we were raising hybrid striped bass, which are carnivorous fish, and you want them to develop and you want to grow fast to get them to market, and it's all about the diet. And they're an anadromous fish. Striped bass hybrid is a cross between a white bass, which lives in fresh water, striped bass. They go upstream like salmon to spawn, but they live their adult lives in salt water, though they can live in fresh water too. It's interesting fish. But this is the main thing, is that you have to look at the ingredients if you have saltwater fish to make sure that they have, like salmon, like I said, salmon meal and ingredients that provide the right fatty acids so they can get their HAAS from the diet. Because I do a lot of shows, 38 shows this year, freshwater, saltwater, different things. And I I get this all the time, which is rather disappointing in that, well, I just feed, what's ever on sale or whatever I can get cheap. And I understand, especially in these times, money's tight, but if you're keeping these animals, they're in your care, your responsibility is to feed them the correct diet, not just what's cheap out there. And this is the main difference, is the HAAS and the PUFAs, and that leads to the expense. So HAAS, zooplankton, krill, shrimp, fish oils. And it's a little weird in that I can't add krill to my fish food. That's illegal, not accepted. A lot of states, you can't do it. Food will get confiscated. But you can go to the fish store or online and you can buy krill. I showed a picture of them. So I can't add the krill, but you can go get the krill. I don't understand the logic behind that, but krill is a great source of HAAS. Shrimp, fish oil, things like that are a great source of HAAS for your marine fish. And if you're feeding a freshwater diet to a marine fish, it doesn't mean the fish is going to, die in 5 or 6 days. I'm talking long term. It takes 6 months, a year for these dietary maladies to form. So because people sometimes listen to this talk and then they kind of freak out. Well, I got this food, should I throw it away? No, just variability, variation is the key to everything. Carbohydrates are basically sugars. In humans, carbohydrates are our main source of energy. The carbs become glucose, and that fuels your ATP. But fish get little energy from carbs. So feeding a high carb diet basically just leads to fat and leads to pollution in your aquarium because it passes right through the fish. And this is what comes down to bloat and stringy poop. Those are diets that have a lot of carbs in it because carbs are relatively cheap. But the fish don't digest them. They lack the proper enzymes. And so that's why they get, like I said, the stringy poop and the bloat. So you limit starch in your diets. And unfortunately, flake and pellet foods contain a large amount of starch. Why? Because that's convenient. It's the binder that holds everything together. So you got wheat, you got cornmeal, rice, potato, oats. Those are different sources of starch that are relatively inexpensive. Humans, if we're not sedentary, sitting on the couch watching a football game while we're texting or on TikTok, but convert starch to sugar. Fish can't convert starch to sugar. They convert protein to sugar. That's a main difference there. And that's why if you're trying to grow fish fast, if you're trying to spawn fish, if your fish isn't feeling very well, if you're not feeling well and you're starting to get better, what does your doctor say? Eat. He doesn't care. He or she doesn't care. They just want you to eat something. That's the same with fish. They love high protein. So they have fish lack the enzyme amylase, which is what degrades or converts starch. So limit starch, that will eliminate bloat. It'll eliminate stringy poop. And then more starch means more waste. And more waste means more work for you. Your filter becomes clogged, the aquarium becomes clogged, you're generating lots of organic waste and bacterial action. That organic waste is broken down by heterotrophic bacteria and it produces ammonia. And then that goes into the ammonia cycle. As ammonia is converted to nitrite and nitrate, you're producing hydrogen ions, which is dropping your pH. Now you have to buffer your water or change water and things like that. All this bacterial action consumes oxygen. In some cases, bacterial processes may be consuming as much or more oxygen in the aquarium than the fish are, and it clogs filters. So vitamins, there's 15 essential vitamins. Fish can't make their own vitamins. They have to get it from their food. But just like with humans, too much is not good, and can even be harmful. Oops. This is the different types of micro minerals, macro minerals, and micro minerals. Fish, just like humans, need all these, but in a small amount. There was one manufacturer of fish food, and they put out on their nutrition label this huge amount of vitamin A. It would be enough to kill a horse. I don't know how they got that label through the states they got it through, because it wasn't right. How to maintain fish color. As I said earlier, fish color comes from algae and plant materials. Even if you're that spotted grouper I showed earlier, that red color is coming from eating things that ate plants. Even if you're eating a crustacean or a shrimp or a krill, they're eating some type of plant, whether it's a phytoplankton or grazing. For us, most people don't want all that algae and all the plants in the tank, because if they're a plant-eating fish, they tear the plants up that you just spent money on. So we add color enhancers. Red color comes from cabxanthin, paprika. So if you're making your own diet, you can sprinkle a little paprika in there. When we were raising the hybrid striped bass for the Japanese market, the Japanese really like the fish to have this pink color. And we would add paprika to the diet, and the fish would turn pink. And we sold a lot of fish to Japan. Astaxanthin, that's aquacultured algae. That can come from there. Yellows come from marigolds. So this is why you see sometime when you're looking at that back label, it'll have different types of flowers, basically, because they're a great source of colors to keep of color enhancers for your fish. Amino-stimulants, there's glucans, chitin, carrageen, seaweed extracts all have amino-stimulant properties. And then probiotics. So this word has gotten overused. There's some people that want to say that, nitrifying bacteria, which is, my specialty, my PhD, are probiotics. They're not. Probiotics are microorganisms which have a direct health benefit to the host. There are, like I said, a lot of work has been done on probiotics with fish, because it is illegal to medicate most fish, especially in the aquaculture market. You can only use certain antibiotics. They have to be approved. And then the fish have to be off that antibiotic for so many months before they can be fed to humans. And so it's much more effective to get a probiotic. In fact, an article just came out yesterday where they put this little patch. It's the size of a postage stamp, and it's made with these probiotics on. They put it on steak, and it keeps the bacteria down, because basically how probiotics work is they outcompete other bacteria for space, or they extrude a substance that kills the other bacteria. Probiotics are all around us. They're just not in high enough concentration. So it's not something that's genetically engineered or bad for humans. This is my backyard, one of my backyard ponds. I practice what I preach. Koi and goldfish are a special case, like I said, because they don't possess a stomach. The area of intestine is very low pH. They eat about anything, but as I said earlier, there's a difference between digestion and indigestion. They have a special diet, lots of fiber. You really want some type of fiber to be up there in the top one or two ingredients. Too much protein, it just leads to poop and waste and pollutes your pond. What a lot of people do, though, for their koi is they go down to the feed store and they get trout diet. And that's a terrible diet for koi and goldfish because it has a very high level of fat and it has oils in there. And that's just not good for your koi and goldfish. Ash is, you want that to be less than 10% for your koi and your goldfish. So what I do? How do I feed? I do feed flakes. It's convenient and it's easy to have people do that, but I don't feed it exclusively. I prefer pellets over flakes. Freeze-dried food, the quality depends, but I do that. I don't do much live foods. When I ran the striped bass hatchery, we hatched brine shrimp the brine shrimp eggs were very nutritional, but an adult brine shrimp is pretty much like a cricket with reptiles. It's an empty vessel. Frozen can be good, but know your source. And also, frozen can have a lot of phosphate, because that's what keeps it preserved, so you don't get fungus and bacteria growing on the frozen foods. So you should rinse it before you use it. And of course, these are all generalizations, but it's pretty much what I recommend. And gels, full new disclosure, this is what we feed. It's what a lot of professional aquariums feed because you have control of what goes in there. It doesn't take much time, but if you're dealing with a lot of fish and prize fish and lots of colors, gels can be a great way to give them all the nutrition they need. I was going to skip that. So this is different types of foods that can be put. Garlic, that is a controversial subject. Some people swear by feeding fish garlics, others don't. I am a fan of using garlic. And mealworms, some people.
We lost audio. Can you hear us?
I can hear you, yes. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Sorry. Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you.
All right. Well, I think this is the last slide. No matter what fish you keep, learn about them first. Where do they feed? Top, middle, bottom. What's their nature? Algae, eating other fish. Do they have special diets? That's especially important with many marine fish. They have special diets. And then mix it up. Provide variety. Different types of food. And you can tell if the fish is suffering from nutrition because you can just look at it. Are the colors fading? Is the body shape changing? And that will tell you a lot. And then you can look at that and maybe change their diet, vary their diet, because they can come back from this. And that is the extent of my talk. I appreciate it. I know I talk fast. I hope that was okay with everybody. Let's see, stop. There. Can you guys hear me? I can't hear. Oh, now we, yeah.
Do you have time for some questions?
Yes.
You don't have any? I'll ask one right up. Actually, I'll start with one. A lot of you can buy fish food marketing as big as fish food, obviously. You buy guppy food, you buy betta food, all this specific, how much of that is really important for certain species versus how much of it is just marketing, would you say?
Most of it is marketing. You there's, as I said, it's mostly marketing, to be truthful. You need a carnivorous diet, which is higher in protein. The main difference, as I said, if you've got freshwater or saltwater fish, that's a big difference. And then if you've got very colorful fish, then you want to make sure that they have a lot of plant or like I said, the marigolds, astaxanthin, captaxanthin, because that will help with the colors. But for most fish, where they feed, bettas tend to feed at the surface. So you want a fish that floats or a food that floats. So it's not so much all this different variety. It's, does the fish float? Does the food float or does it sink? Is it freshwater or is it saltwater? Is it color enhancing, non-color enhancing? You don't need 20 linear feet of fish food, which my friends that own fish food companies won't be happy with that, but that's just the truth.
Oh, we got a question here.
Dr. Tim, thank you for joining us today. We appreciate you donating your time. I just
You're
wanted to
welcome.
ask, actually, the microbiome in saltwater aquariums specifically, are there any products out there that are probiotics you can add that are viable in the aquarium and will actually reproduce over multiple generations, or are they all needed to be added continuously in order to sustain the population, including some of your products like EcoBalance and things like that?
Well, the answer is they where do they live? In the water or on surfaces? And most of the probiotic bacteria, my EcoBalance, Waste Away, live in the water. And it's specifically in a saltwater aquarium, what happens? People have a protein skimmer. Now they have a roller filter and they have filter socks, maybe a UV sterilizer. All those things kill the bacteria from the water column or remove the bacteria from the water column. So it's not so much that the bacteria won't become established. It's because of all the devices that we have and that we want our aquariums to be as clear as the room you guys are on. I mean, that's the number one thing that public aquariums do is everybody wants that water to have 100-foot visibility. That's not what the ocean is unless you're out in the middle of, even in the middle of ocean, where there's not much nutrients. So the reason you have to continually add things is because you're continually removing them, maybe unintentionally, and a lot of people don't understand that, and that's a whole nother talk. Why do you get cyano and dino and all those surface, even in freshwater aquariums, all that surface nuisance bacteria and algae? It's because we've eliminated all the algae from the water column that are their natural competitors. Now, on surfaces, that's where nitrifiers grow. Bacteria are food. So if you were to take a scraping and look under a microscope, you're going to see all sorts of organisms in that scraping, in that biofilm that are eating the bacteria. Luckily for nitrifiers, you can measure ammonium nitrite and know if your population is going up or down. But generally, you have to continually add certain things because of the devices. That's why people say a natural aquarium, I never have to do anything, because they're using plants and they're not using all these artificial devices. But what do they don't have? They don't have a lot of fish.
So if you're not running socks or a UV sterilizer and your protein skimmer is set very minimally, it's not on all the time, and you're worried more about like biofilm, like rotobacter on the rocks, does that bacteria reproduce over multiple generations, or is that also something that you should be adding frequently?
No, the rotobacter, that type of bacteria reproduces every 20 to 30 minutes. So
Yeah.
unless you're disturbing it, scraping it, or something, no, you don't need to add the surface bacteria generally. They'll that's why you don't have to add nitrifiers. You know, some companies that sell nitrifiers tell you to add it all the time. You know, add it every week. No, you know, you don't. They get established and they multiply. And unless you get what I call that Sunday religion. You know, it's getting colder. You come in, you've kind of ignored your tank all summer. And now you look at it and it's like, that tank needs some cleaning. I'm going to get in and I'm going to siphon clean the gravel and I'm going to clean the rocks and I'm going to clean the sides. You clean all those surfaces and artificially remove all the bacteria. But generally, you don't. And some of Eli's work is shown, Eli, who runs Aquabiome, has shown that once you hit that stableness, which can take in a new aquarium 6 to 9 months, the bacteria diversity is and the main families are pretty stable. It's when you have a disturbance that you upset things. That answer your question?
A little off topic, brain on the microbiome a little bit since we had you here.
No, it's I have a whole talk I give. It's more professionals on the aquabiome because that's what I'm very interested in. And there's a lot of misinformation about that. And so a little hint, I know we're talking nutrition, but he asked me, so you guys got to bear with my favorite subject, microbiology. Georgia Aquarium did this study, and you can look it up, and they took their whale sharks, and they took a scraping from the snout, the middle, and then the cloaca, the anus, just on the surfaces. Same time, same tank, same animal, and the biome is completely different. So you might think, well, it's the same animal in the same tank. It'd be exactly the same, and it wasn't. So we have the capability of getting a lot of data from all this biome stuff, but we don't understand what it means. And anybody that tells you they do is marketing, not science. It's the equipment is there. You can collect a ton. Exactly what it means, we don't know. And a lot of people out there talking about biomes and diversity and microbial ecology, I'm sorry, they don't know what they're talking about. I actually do have a PhD in microbial ecology, and I just cringe at what I read. And I can't comment on reef to reef anymore or some of these things because people just don't want to hear what I say. but because it's contrary to what marketing and some other companies are saying. So I'll keep it at that right now.
Well, excellent. Thank you, Dr. Matt. I appreciate it.
I
Any other
appreciate it.
questions out there?
Yeah, can you touch on the subject of nutritional leaching once especially dry pellets, pellets or flakes, once they hit the water? My understanding is that certain elements like vitamin C will drain within seconds, if not a few minutes.
Yeah, so particularly the vitamins, there are fat-soluble vitamins and water-soluble vitamins. And vitamin C is a water-soluble vitamin, and there is a more stable form of vitamin C. It's kind of like chelated copper. They add a couple of things to the chemistry to make it where it doesn't dissolve so quickly. I'm not sure about in seconds, but definitely vitamin C and some of the B's are vitamins that do not have a real long shelf life once they hit water. That's absolutely true. So it depends if the fish food is using the stabilized form of vitamin C, it's supposed to say that on the label, which is a good thing. It's more nutritionally stable in the packaging. And then they should date label. So you look at the back of that, and that is mostly for the vitamins because the vitamins get oxidized over time. In a lot of these, in everything. Yeah.
So along with that, I guess what's the standard? Whatever you feed your fish, that you should feed them amount of food that they can eat in 3 minutes, I think is probably standard.
Yeah, that's pretty standard. You should, what they eat. It's much better to feed the fish small amounts more frequently rather than one big amount. And how do I make that? Well, as I said earlier, my master's thesis was on feeding with striped bass. So this was when I was working at the hatchery, and the question is, we're raising all these fish. How often do you feed them? We're all hobbyists, but then you people 2 or 3 times a day. But are you wasting food because they'll eat it, but will they get any nutrition from it? And I fed ad libitum, which is as much food as the fish wanted, like 5 times a day. That was a complete waste of resources because what was coming out of the fish wasn't even digested. And yes, I basically studied fish poop for my master's. But what the conclusion was, small amounts 3 to 5 times a day. And it does depend upon the size of the fish. If it's a small fish and it's going to stay small, small frequent feedings are much better than just one big feeding once a day. And the other thing is, you don't have to feed 7 days a week. I practice that. We generally don't feed on Sundays. Water quality improves. The fish have resources. I mean, they come up to you, and especially if you have kids, they're hungry. They're going to be fed. We think they're starving to death. They're not. It's like putting a bowl of potato chips in front of us. We're going to eat it. And then 3 hours later, another bowl in front of us, we're going to eat it. But it's not what really the best thing. So small, frequent feedings is what they'll eat in a couple of minutes is a good rule. Yep.
Thank you.
Doctor, what are your thoughts on like the shelf life of dried food? Because I have a very small tank with very small fish in it, and I've never gone through a whole jar of it. Does it actually degrade nutritionally just sitting there next to the tank, or is that a bunch of marketing bullshit?
Well, over time, the vitamins do degrade. I mean, and it depends upon the temperature. So if you're not going to feed a bunch of that, I would take a bunch of it and put it in the freezer. That will stop the degradation, basically the oxidation of the vitamins. That's what's happening over time. The other types, the minerals are stable. Generally, the carbs, unless if the food wasn't made correctly and you start getting it clumping or it gets mold in it, throw it away. Because if you can kill your fish by feeding moldy food to them. But if you keep it in the freezer, if you keep it in the freezer, all those processes stop. So just, separate it out. But it's mostly the vitamins, and it would take a long time. I wouldn't waste. If it was 4 or 5 years old, yes. Is it going to last a year and be okay? Yes. But feed a little, vary that a little bit if you can. Does that answer your question?
Thank you, Doctor. Guys, thank you very much. Any other questions? Thank you. Yeah, Dr. Tim, thanks for coming in to visit with us today. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
My question is it's a very basic, simple question, but I like to treat my fish with green beans out of the can. How does that fit into your categories that you had of fresh food versus frozen food? When it's canned, it's obviously probably had a lot of salt to store it in the can or whatever, but how does that kind of correlate to how good that
I
is
think
as a
it's great.
food item?
Well, I think it's a great food item because it has lots of fiber, but just rinse it. Light rinsing to get all that stuff off. But no, it's a great food. Some fish love that. Yeah, so I have no problem with the canned foods like that, vegetables.
3 for $1, whatever, I stock up cans.
Yeah, no, it's all good. Cucumbers, beans, peas, things like that are all good for fish.
Any other questions?
We don't feed enough vegetables. Yeah.
You were talking about, looking at feces. How, is there a way that you can see, fully digested food? Like just from watching a fish poop, like, can you say, oh, that fish digested that food or not? Like, am I overfeeding essentially?
If the food is coming out stringy, if the food is coming out, like in clumps, that
Yeah.
is not fully digested food. If the food kind of comes out and spreads as a cloud and is more smaller, how do I describe it? Liquefied. That is much more completely digested. Stringy food, that is not digested, and clumps and things like that. Yeah, that's the easiest way to tell.
All right, yeah, that makes sense.
Could you tell us a little bit more about kind of your food and products that you sell?
Sure. So, what we make is do-it-yourself frozen food. It's a gel. So the gel is giant kelp agar, which is nutritionally good because you can use bone marrow and other things. And it's basically there's no starch. So there's no gluten, there's no starch. I know for marketing people, gluten-free for people, but for fish, it makes a big difference because they don't like carbs and they don't get energy from carbs. And so our food has no carbs. It has salmon meal as the number one ingredient for the marine diet, and whitefish for the freshwater diet because of the hoofas and the poofas. And then we add probiotics. And I tell you the name of the probiotic we add. I put it right on the label, and you can go look it up and see all the scientific studies that have been done on this probiotic for fish and shrimp. We add spirulina and marigolds for color enhancers. We add glucans for immunostimulants, blueberries. And I was blueberries are a great antioxidant. And I was at a show once, and there was this guy, and he was really looking over the food, and he looked up to me and he goes, "Blueberries. Fish don't eat blueberries. Why it's in your diet?" And I said, "You're 100% right. Fish don't eat blueberries. Fish in the wild also don't eat flakes and pellets. So if I take your logic to its end, none of these foods are any good." So, we put blueberry in there because of the antioxidant properties, not because it's a blueberry, because of the chemistry. And that's you. When you do a diet, you can do what's called the low-cost diet, with low-cost formula. And a low-cost formula is where I want my protein, say, at 35%, my fat at 8%, my ash at 10%. I don't care how you get there. If you're talking to the company making it for you, I want it there, and I want to spend the least amount of money to get there. What that means is that over time, you as a consumer buy that diet. It may have one formula at one time and another formula at another time. That's not how we do things. Our diet is, I want these ingredients at these levels. And that means that cost goes up and down. And right now up because everything is up. But that means that it's the same and it's continuous. So with our diet, you take a cup of water and you microwave it for a minute and a half till it boils. You add the pouch of food and you stir it for a minute or two. That triggers the gelling action of the agar-agar. You pour it in the tray, and then you freeze it for 2 minutes or for 2 hours. There's no preservatives. All fish food has phosphates. This one company was out there advertising our food is phosphate free. That's like you going down to your gas station and the gas station having a pump that says we have gasoline that's octane free. It's only 50 cents a gallon and it has no octane. Your car's not going to run. Your car, that the difference between the prices is the octane level, because that's where the energy is coming from. And that's the same with fish food. You can't develop a phosphate-free fish food. Our cells need phosphate for the biochemistry, which I won't go into. But it's also a preservative. Phosphate keeps the pH low, and that means it retards fungal and bacterial growth. But ours has a low level, just the right level of phosphate. No starches, no glutens, and then just the right amount of HAAS and PUFAs in it for your fish.
Very good. Any other last, we got one more question?
Yeah, one question. I actually have started making my own food and have noticed a big difference. Because I'm new back into the hobby and admittedly, I've got overstocked tanks. But I've noticed when the filtration is much better and so I really appreciate that guidance that you've kind of put out there. But my question is, when I put the food in there, the majority of it is the kind of dissolves in that water. And is that okay in the sense that the fish are not like getting chunks of food in there very much?
How are you binding it together? Is it a frozen food?
Yeah, so I freeze it. I've actually used your product and then I've added some of the add-ins in it and then I freeze it. But it does really dissolve quickly in the water.
Okay, so what sounds like what's happening is that there's too much of the additives, so the ratio between the binder, the agar-agar, and the binders is off, and that's what's causing that. So you either have to make bigger cubes, and you can buy agar-agar on Amazon and experiment a little bit, because with ours, if you make it as we say, the cube doesn't dissolve when it hits the water. But if you have a lot of stuff in there, you've got just a little bit of the agar-agar, the binder, and that's why it kind of explodes. So you have to kind of cut back on the stuff you're adding on that to get it the gel. There's not enough of the gel in there, basically.
Okay, thank
Or
you.
depending on the fish, and you said you had a lot of big fish, you can get those silicone trays on Amazon at in a much bigger size. And then you could just experiment, and the binder should be at least 50% of the total volume of the cube to get it to bind well and not explode when it hits the water.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Tim. It's been a great talk. Appreciate you joining us. I'll encourage everybody to check out his website and products, and it's always good to support those that are supporting the health of the fish and doing the right thing. So I appreciate bringing this information. Thank you.
Yeah, and I thought we sent some coupons, or you can use DT 25 to get 25% off, if that helps. I mean, every little bit helps, but I think we sent some products for a donation. Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much.